It's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about if I was going to make a video today or if I was going to talk about anything. And if I was, what was it going to be? And I went through a lot of my favorite messages or passages that I teach on that I feel comfortable teaching on. And there's a few like David and Goliath. I love that one. Not because of the battle scene, but just about faithfulness and about true believers and the power in that. And then I thought about Jesus in John 2 overthrowing or throwing over the money changers' tables and driving people out of the temple. And the reality is that I don't feel like teaching on any of that. You know, I don't feel like doing this at all. Not because I don't love it, because I love spreading the message, but because I feel like you guys need some context on who I am. And that's a scary thing for me. Not because I don't like who I am, or I don't love who I am, or I don't think you will. It's not that. I think with a clean slate meeting me today, you'd probably like me just fine. Most of you. Maybe not everyone, but most of you. But the reality is, I've lived a complicated, complex life. And my past is checkered, to say the least. And so last night, I was in group, and we were talking about, where substance abuse came from in us. What was the pain? What was the insecurity? What was the struggle or the trial that led to that for us? And I've thought about this a lot, and it came really clear to me is that for me, it came from a place of fear. I had a fear that I wasn't enough, that if people knew me, they wouldn't like me, that they wouldn't love me, they wouldn't care about me, they wouldn't put me first, they wouldn't choose to be in relationship with me. That's what I was afraid of. And the drugs, they allowed me to ignore all of those insecurities and convinced me that I was the life of the party or the most interesting, fun person around. And so they gave me a boost of confidence, and that's why I chose them over and over again, because I feared that I wasn't enough. And the drugs, they made me believe that I was more than enough as long as I was getting loaded. But that had me thinking about fear and insecurities. And this morning, it really kind of came to me that where I'm at in my life today is that I'm not afraid that people won't like me for who I am anymore. I think they will. What I'm afraid of is that people won't accept me for where I've been, for the journey I've been through, for what I've done in the past. That they won't be able to look back that time or look past the time in prison, the crimes I committed, drug use, addiction, all of that they can't see past that and see me today, that they can just see that. And I realized that I'm afraid of that's going to be a reality for me, that's going to be how people decide whether or not they want to be in my life, whether or not they want to be my friend or my girlfriend or any of that they'll look not at who I am, but at what I've been through and make their decision that way. And that's a really hard, sobering thought for me. And that leads me to my testimony. And it's complicated, to say the least. I think people that know a little bit about me would think that it really begins at my arrest, because I committed a bunch of armed robberies in 2006, and the cops tried to pull me over. I led them on a high-speed chase and ended up trying to run them over, and they shot me a bunch of times. And I woke up in the hospital 3 weeks later on a ventilator, fully paralyzed from the neck down. And the reality was that that was probably the most distressing moment of my life. And I did cry out to God. And I did turn there, because that's what I've always done, is that in moments of distress, in moments of terror, in moments of fear, I turn to God. But I don't know that my journey really starts there, and my conversion definitely didn't start there, because even though that was the most terrifying experience of my life, and that's when I cried out to God and He did respond, that wasn't when I began to change. Not really. I mean, there was a superficial bargaining with God about avoiding consequences, but once I was sentenced, and I was sentenced to 28 years, I mean, I immediately bailed on Him. Like, there wasn't even a question in my mind. I was like, oh, okay, I see what's up. You're full of crap, which isn't true, but I was so hurt that I had to go. I couldn't do it. And I remember checking out for, gosh, at least 3 years, probably. Just, I just couldn't function. And that was in 2008 when I got sentenced. And I think it took till at least 2011 for me to even like have a conscious thought again. I was just so numb to everything based on the trauma of that sentence, and everything that I'd been through up to that point. But the amazing thing about God is that He's always faithful, even when we're not. And so He honored those prayers that I prayed. And that's kind of where my journey started, in the sense of, it's not where my journey started. It's just, it's a blip. It's such a blip, and it should have been so huge. Both of those events, they should have changed me, and they really didn't. I mean, not for the better. They made me more cynical and angry and frustrated and all of that. But, you know, what actually sparked the change in me, I think, was two things, right? First, I read Tim Tebow's book, Through My Eyes. And it wasn't anything really that he said in there specifically that was like shocking or so revelatory that I couldn't look past it and I had to become a Christian. It was more, I could identify with him and who he was, and I saw how his family was, and through that glimpse into what Christianity was all about, Christian parents, being a Christian son, being a Christian man, all of these things, that I was like, oh, I want that. And I had this idea in my mind that if I had been raised in that type of loving, caring, accepting, faithful household, that would have been the natural path for me. And I wanted that. I wanted to believe that it was everything outside me was what had led me to where I was, that I hadn't made any, that it wasn't all my responsibility. I wanted to blame everyone else. And so that book kind of allowed me to do that in a way. And not that that book is designed to do that. His book was very good, but that's kind of what happened for me. That's what I chose to use it for. And so then that was in, I believe, 2012, and then it took another 2 years, and then my dad killed himself, right? My dad shot himself in the head. And up until that point, I had been really suicidal for most of my life. A lot of ideation, a lot of plans and plots, and if only this happens, or when this happens, then I'm going to check out. And that was really where I was at, and that was in 2014. But my dad killed himself, and it really was an eye-opener for me, because I was like, oh man, me and him, we're the same self-destructive guys. I am angry, he's angry. I am defeatist, he's defeatist. I'm negative, he's negative, and I'm always looking for a way out and an excuse to take it. And he found his, and he did. And I think that was the actual moment that I began to change, is that I realized that I didn't want to be like him anymore. I didn't ever wanted to admit that I was like him. And that really drove it home, that I was just like him. And it was really sad. It was really hurt me. And I remember crying so much about it, just because I was so frustrated and confused about how I felt. I mean, because on one hand, I was so angry with him for killing himself and setting our relationship where it was forever, that there was never going to be a reconciliation. There was going to be no change in it. It was just going to end there. And that if I wanted to change the way that I thought about it, I would have to do that on my own, without an apology, without, a hug, without an explanation, without any change on his behalf, just with an absence, with that void. And that sense of abandonment was really hard on me. But what I think is more interesting is just how much that changed my life. I had been going to church level 4 at High Desert for a couple years at that point. And I mean, it was a really dangerous place, a really violent prison, and Christianity was not popular for sure. I think I was the only white guy that went to church, at least the church I went to. There was another guy who I lived with for a little bit of time named Greg Henning, and he went to the LDS church, but it was not popular on that yard. And I actually started looking for excuses to put myself in dangerous Christian situations. I started putting flyers up on the walls, encouraging people to go to church, telling people, that they needed to change their life. All this, I went like super hard, and I think there was a couple different reasons. Part of it was almost self-destructive in the sense that I was just looking for, someone to end it for me. And it was that type of place that if I would have gone too far, that they definitely would have responded in a violent way towards me. So, but my faith built, and I remember being in my word all the time, reading, always studying, always trying to understand God, praying all the time, and just going really deep in the word. And it was kind of a beautiful gift in the sense that I didn't have anything else to distract me. And that was, I had all the time in the world to study. And people right now don't really have that on the street. When you're free, you have a job, you got kids, you got your family, And it's not to say that you shouldn't prioritize, reading your word first, but the reality is you got to live, you got to eat, you got to take care of your responsibilities. It's going to be tough to have what I had, which was, unlimited amount of cell time where I could do whatever I want inside of that little environment. And thankfully God put it on my heart to choose to read his word and study it, and it was fruitful. But so that's where my change began, that real change, where I was like, ooh, I don't want to be who I am. Because I think that's the major difference between people who change and who don't. It's not I don't like this, right? Or I want that. It's I don't want to be the person I am anymore. And here's why. And it's sad and it's shocking how much I had to go through to get to a point where I was like, oh, this isn't working and I need to be different. And then even then, that was in 2014, and it took years. It took probably another 4 years for me to really, really cement that change to become someone that, I can look in the mirror and go, oh, okay, yeah, you're cool. I like you. You're not going to screw me over today. You're not going to make a big mistake. You're not going to hurt anyone. You're not going to hurt yourself. You're not going to self-destruct. You're not going to quit. That you're going to keep leaning into this. And, I'm so grateful for Jesus and for the gospel message, because without it, I could never even have made it nearly this far. And it's funny looking back. I think back to my time in juvenile hall, and I was 18 and in juvenile hall because I had a pretty decent lawyer. And I remember I'd been there for probably about 6.5 months, which in juvenile hall time is an eternity. It's so long, and it was so gnarly. And I remember getting put in their R&R area in a holding tank because I freaked out because they gave me a different cellie again, and I had new cellies almost every day. It was not that much, but I had 40 cellies in 7 months, and I finally had one that I was getting along with, this dude named Brandon Flowers that I really liked, and that I was becoming friends with. And then they had some gangbangers come in that couldn't live together, and so they needed to split us up. And and I freaked out. I lost it. And I remember them taking me to this holding tank to cool off. And I'm in there and I'm just losing my mind. And I hit my knees and I pray to God and I'm like, God, you gotta help me. And I'd been reading my word. My Aunt Nita, my mom, everybody had been encouraging me and sending me stuff, always praying for me and all of this. And I hit my knees and I'm praying and it was probably the most earnest prayer of my life, like really, when I think about it, because I didn't have a whole lot of knowledge. So it wasn't like I was trying to trick God or use his promises against him, which I have a tendency to try and do now. It was just really honest about where I was. I was just like, this is intolerable. I need you. Help me. I need some help. And I don't think there was any avoidance at that point of consequence because I was just in a trial. I was in an intolerable situation. There wasn't a consequence I was trying to get out of or whatever. I was already in it. I just was trying to get some relief from just correction. And God answered that prayer, and I was out in like 2 weeks. And I blew it. I blew that opportunity. But I think that prayer, when I look back, is one of the most powerful prayers in my life because I think it set me on a trajectory, right, that I would become faithful, that God could actually change my heart and win me over. And as painful as that road was, I'm so grateful because, like I said, today, I'm cool with who I am. When I look in the mirror, I'm like, okay, yes, I love you. You're a good dude. I'd kick it with you. I'd be friends with you, and that's beautiful. And only God can inspire that. But the journey's hard. It's really hard, and mine was rough. And when I think about it, and I think about how other people would feel about my experience through this life, and the things that I've done, and the things that have been done to me, it's hard not to wonder if people can look past that and look past the journey and just go, all right, who this person today is someone I want to be around, is a person I want to have in my life, is someone I want to be a friend to or a friend with, or I want to date. All of this stuff, it's complicated and it weighs on me right now. And so I know that I need to focus on my relationship with Jesus and keep him front and center in my life, in my heart, because that's going to put everything else in order. And so there's a little bit about me. Maybe you'll find it interesting, maybe not. I'm not even sure if I'm going to post this, but God just kind of put it on my heart to give you a little background. And if I seem a little sad or a little down in this video, that's because I am. I've been on quarantine for a little over, I think, like 10 days now, something like that. Pretty much by myself. Thankfully, I got social media and my phone so I can reach out to a lot of people, but the alone time has really weighed on me because I'm not used to it. And I just got out of prison, and I've been around my peers, my friends for so long, so consistently. To just be isolated for this long is difficult for me because, as I've said, Christianity is not a walk you walk alone. And as much as I'm trying to stay connected and keep that going, I really value that time with people. So that's where I'm at. I just want to let you guys know a little bit about who I am and how I became a Christian. If you have any questions or anything like that, let me know. Post them in the comments. Just tell me, and I'll expound on anything. I'm pretty much an open book. And it's like I was texting with someone, and I was letting them know that I had been in prison. And the way that I framed it was that, hey, this feels like a secret. I mean, it's not, but it feels like one right now. And that feeling was kind of disturbing. Not disturbing, I guess that's too strong, but it was just a little bit, yeah, it was disturbing. I was like, oh man, this sucks. I don't want to be judged based on, the worst time in my life or the worst moments in my life or the things that I've done, and I know nobody else wants to either. So what I would encourage people is just remember who you are today is more important than who you used to be, but it's way less important than who you're going to become. And every decision you make is going to lead you into either being a person that you love and that others love, or lead you into being a person that you can't stand. And I really challenge you that the easiest way to keep developing into the person you want to be and who God wants you to be is to get in His Word, keep reading His Word, keep praying, keep finding opportunities to minister to others and have people minister to you and to be a blessing, and it'll change your life. So I love you guys. God bless you guys, and have a great day.